This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level.
Hey everyone, Mark Streniglia here from Spotlight Branding, and I've got Shaun Buck from the Newsletter Pro with me. Hey Shaun, how's it going, man?
What's up, Mark? How are you?
Good. So for those that don't know, Shaun and I go back. We've known each other quite a few years. Shaun's company works with a lot of attorneys, and we've just had a great working relationship, and I'm really excited to have you on as a guest today. Shaun, can for those that don't know who you are, and longtime podcast listeners probably have heard you in webinars or past episodes, but what's kind of the quick 30 seconds on your company, what they do, and kind of who the heck you are?
Yeah. So my primary company is Newsletter Pro. We're a marketing agency, but we focus on kind of the nurture, retention, referrals, upsells. So instead of the lead generation, like a lot of companies, which is great.
And that's why we get along.
Yeah, that's a good reason we get along. We pick it up either from helping to nurture those leads that didn't buy right away, or after they've already become clients. And how do we maximize that, keep them coming back over and over again when appropriate, right? And we do that by helping you build relationships through newsletters, telling your story, building up your brand, keeping you top of mind, getting you more referrals, all that kind of stuff. And so that's a little bit about what our company, what my company does. I guess from if you want to go from where we've been doing this 10 years now. So I've been doing this for a long time from in Newsletter Pro. And we're just we've had a lot of amazing growth, 65 or so plus team members, and just kind of like growing, doing good. Me personally, I've been an entrepreneur literally my entire adult life. I've owned everything from my first kind of like real business was a couple of hot dog stands in front of Lowe's Home Improvement when I was 19 or 20 years old, and a bunch of other things, info businesses and a couple ad agencies and some real estate stuff that I do and all sorts of fun things. So I do a lot of different things, but that's a little bit of me. I got a bunch of kiddos running around the house, and I'm happy they're back in school so I can get work done, and yeah.
At the time of this episode, they're back in school.
They're back. Yeah, I actually have one there. My kids get out tomorrow. So I actually have one who doesn't have finals today. And so he's
we're on the heels of summer.
Yes, on the heels of summer. So
well, speaking of home versus not.
Yes.
So that's what Shaun and I were talking a little bit offline before we started recording this episode, and we had a really great conversation that we actually want to share with you guys, the listeners, today, because I think it's a conversation that everyone's having to some degree in their head. And that's the conversation around to take my company remote or not. And even if it's not necessarily the whole company, even just the idea of some parts being remote or some staff remote. So I and my company, my main company, Spotlight Branding, we did come back to the office. We did not go permanently remote, but Shaun, Newsletter Pro, went the other direction, and I think that's going to be a really fun thing for you and I to kind of talk about the pros and cons. So just kind of give us the quick background there on taking the company remote and what that's been like so far.
Yeah. So let's see, when everything kind of started to hit there last March, right? Or March 2020, we realized we had to move everyone work from home. Now that was something I'd always pushed back on, right? There was a lot of culture reasons, and I had this huge building that I bought, it's 25,000 square feet. Because we've got a ton of employees, and then we do, we have printing equipment for when we're doing the print newsletter stuff, and we've got all these things, right? And we had grown so fast. I bought a huge building because we'd grown so fast. We moved like 5 times in 6 years. So I was like, listen, I'm buying a big building so we can grow into it, right? That was the plan. And we went to work from home, and initially it was supposed to be temporary. And I think that was a lot of people's plan. Now, of course, not everyone could be work from home, at least in my company. Like for the people who handled the print side of our company, they had to obviously be there running printers, right? So they were coming in. It was about 8 people, eight people or so out of the company do that, maybe 9. And they were there running the machines. And then the people who are doing the writing or the graphic design or web-based stuff or whatever, those people, marketing, sales, those people all went work from home. And so
and Shaun, real quick, about how big is your team, just for reference?
About 65 employees or so, give or take. Yeah. And so, you got what, if we got 8 of them left, we've got, a small percentage of them, 15% of them stayed, and the other 85% went work from home. And so it was a very, it was supposed to be very temporary like this. And I said it, I'm like, guys, just remember in a couple months, we're all coming back. Don't get used to this. But we had to stand that whole thing up and get everyone out like most people did. And when we did it, initially, actually, we got a little bump in productivity. I think initially we saw that because in some instances, I think people were worried. They're like, man, I better work hard so I don't lose my job, because I think people are probably going to lose their job, right? And a lot of people, I don't know about you guys, had to let people go for a variety of different reasons, whether it was just slow, whether it was like you had to trim some fat, I think at that time we were about 70 employees. And so we did cut a few people ultimately, but we cut them mainly because of job performance or time theft. We had some time theft initially when we went to work from home, right? That was actually one of the bigger reasons, a couple of people lost their job was they were saying they were working and they were not.
How have you handled that since? Like, how are you tracking time?
So it's more metric based, but we did actually adjust a number of our comp plans to be commission based. So even for like our writers, for example, so the people creating content for us, we put a value on each type of piece of content that was being created. Because what I noticed when I looked at we track all of our numbers and everyone had metrics and they had to do this many articles, or this, depending on what their metric was, let's say, right? Well, let's just say they had to write so many articles. We'll just keep it really simple, right? Well, I could see that some employees would write just that amount of articles, whether we were in the office or out of the office, right? Whatever the number was, let's call it 50. Okay. So 50 articles, right? Some people were a little below, and then I had some people who were like writing 70. And I'm like, wow, there's a big difference there, right? That person would be hard to lose because I'd almost have to replace, 1.5 people at that point, right? And we started to see this time theft, and I was like, man, we need to do something different here because it was a lot of management to track everything and to make sure that people were actually doing the work. We're having to go basically check in on them, and check their work folder and stuff.
And I think that's what no manager wants to have to do that, and no employee wants to have that done to them, right? And I think that holds a lot of people back from this remote idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did was we said, what if, everyone isn't created equal, right? Entrepreneurs, attorneys, employees, not all created equal. If I have an employee who is able to produce 40% more content at the level I need them to produce it at, right? Not content that isn't good, right? 40% quality content accepted, clients like it, everything. But I can't pay them 40% more, because if I did that, the one who's doing average would be like, whoa, I want to raise. Look at how much so-and-so is making, right? And so I was like, okay, I've got to come up with a different plan. And so what I came up with was a commission-based plan. And I said, okay, we're going to pay you $50, let's say, right? Or I guess I use 50 as the number for we're going to pay you $40. Okay, we'll do it. So keep it clean, right? They're supposed to write 50 articles. That was their minimum, let's say, right? We're going to pay you $40 for each article. Okay. Now we pay more for each article, on that, but just as an example to keep this easy. Mm-hmm. So there you're going to make $2,000. That would be what you'd make if you do the minimum. And if you do 70 articles, you're going to make $2,800, right? And what happened there was that we put a different dollar amount based off of the type of content they're writing. Obviously, if they're writing like a little blurb, right, that's 100 words or something like that, or 75 words, that's going to be a different price than if they're writing an 800 word article or whatnot, right? That's or a blog post or something along those lines, right? So we put this value on it, and what happened there is it meant the low performers. The low performers actually started making less money than they were making, which naturally made them either leave or increase their performance, right? The high performers started making significantly more money than they were making previously, which made them happy, which allowed me to retain my A players even longer because they're making more money, right? They're happier, they have some more control over their pay. And then it also gave us the flexibility of like, look, when this article is due. You've been assigned the article. There's a deadline when it's due. You have to get it in on time. I don't care whether you do the article at 2 a.m. on Friday night, assuming you haven't been out drinking, 2 a.m. on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Which so with some of these guys might be a big assumption, but we'll assume that that's the case here. And I don't care if you do that or if you do it during the day. Doesn't matter to me. As long as you turn it in on time, makes no difference, right? So that allowed then flexibility, and it also allowed us to change the vacation policy to an unlimited policy because you get, you paid for what you do, right? And so I don't care what day you take off, put it in, request the day, take the day off. You're only getting paid for what you write anyways.
So the question that jumps out to me, and obviously what's interesting about this is that you don't even have to go remote to do this idea, right? No. But obviously it solves one of the problems of going remote, which is time management. But how do you, I've thought about something similar in my business before, and I'm thinking about, the majority of our listeners are going to be law firms or, white collar service-based industries. I'm sure we have some people in the financial sector and others, but large majority of our listeners are going to be attorneys. So, the thing that comes to mind that I'm wondering, and I'm think some of them might be wondering, is how, if you have a model where it's kind of like you take whatever work you want, well, what happens if there's work that nobody takes?
It's not take what you want. You get assigned the work. And when you're assigned the work, you have to do it. So if you're taking a day off, that's fine. But if you're going to take Friday off and you've got 5 pieces of content due Friday, or you got if we're going to talk about attorneys, you got a paralegal who had to have that, that motion, or had to respond to some motion or something like that, right? They had to have that all drafted up and ready to go. Well, then it better be filed. It better be it better be there Friday. That's your.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is how, for you, it's writers. For the attorneys, it might be paralegals. But how does one writer end up with 70 articles and the other 50?
Well, by choice. 50 was the minimum that they could take, right? And so what we did is we said, okay, look, what's basically everyone make here? Kind of what's the middle of the road? Because everyone was making about the same amount of money in that department, right? There wasn't, there's someone who maybe been there for a few years, they're making a little more, but what's kind of like the minimum? And so when we were calculating the commissions, we're like, okay, well, if you do the minimum of 50, we want to make sure that you're right. Maybe you're actually even making a hair more. Maybe you're making a hair more than you were making before just for doing the minimum. Right. And then what happens is as you show us that you can handle more, we will assign more clients to you. And if you show us you can't handle it, we will take the clients from you.
Okay. So what you're kind of banking on there, and obviously successfully so, is that you aren't going to get a lot of pushback on, hey, we want to give you more clients when it's a commission-based model.
Well, they could tell us that as long as they were doing the minimum, they could tell us that was all they didn't,
right.
Unless we really have to, unless I lose one, or listen, there was like about a 10% like wiggle room in there where if you told us to stop, but we had no one else to put it through, you might get one, right? We can overrule you, but
there it is. That's the key right there. Yeah. At the end of the day, if everybody takes the minimum, you got no choice but to hire, but it's like, hey, in the meantime, you all are going to take a few extra, but
yeah, but I mean, I had to do that anyways. That was how it was previously, right? Because everyone started complaining when I got too much work. Well, what I found was when I removed the distractions and I increased the incentive to do the work, they got the work done faster. The quality was better because for example, let's say that they submit some content to you and you reject it. They have to redo it for free. I don't pay them a second time around for that. That's on them. If the client doesn't like it, you're doing it again. And if you get too many of those, we fire you.
That's right? A great point. And I mean, thinking about that for lawyers, paralegals, administrative staff, it's the same thing. I mean, that's a great point. You're encouraging people through your model to actually be more efficient, and that may create capacity for more work, or frankly, it might create more capacity for other things they care about in life. And either way, that's a win, right?
But the interesting thing that we've seen, because we've been doing this for about a year now, not just actually a year this month, I believe it is when we did our first pilot test of this, right? The interesting thing that happened was that so what some people will do is they're just taking the minimum, but then they realize that they have the chance to increase their pay, and they'll be like, you know what I really want? I really want a new car. If I only took 10 more clients, I could get a new car. I'm not even working 40 hours a week, really, because no one knows they're working from home there. Or I am, but I'm willing to put in the extra time because I want this new car. And so their own natural instinct to kind of just grow, make more money, get the things they want, I gave them a path to do that. They didn't have to go to a second job. They didn't have to ask me for a raise. They get their own raises. I don't give another raise. There are no more raises. Now, I mean, we may adjust the up or down the
cost of living
there. But of what they make on each one, but basically, right, it's not like coming in and doing a merit-based raise necessarily, because if you're not doing a good job, you don't have the job, Yeah.
And we could do a whole episode on hiring and firing and
yes.
how I always tell people, here's your metrics, and achieving your metrics is the job.
Achieving it, quality, absolutely, for sure.
What I'm saying. Oh yeah, exactly.
But the minimum standard is you got to achieve the minimum.
Like your job is to do good.
Yeah. Well, so I explained to my kids not too long ago. So like when I take my kids to school in the mornings, not every morning, but a lot of mornings we'll talk something. I'll teach them something business, some real world concept. And so I'm like, okay, I've got this, this little time, this 20 minutes, every day, basically, right, that I'm taking them to school. I want to pour into them instead of just sit there and listen to music. We do it sometimes, but I pour into them. And I said, look, you got to understand, okay, you have your 7 classes or whatever they've got, okay? And your job, I'm not crazy, like some parents, not crazy, I shouldn't say that, but some parents are like very strict on grades, okay? I see it like this. I expect you to get a 70 or better, all right? That's your job. That is the bare minimum. So don't come to me and say, Dad, it's okay. I got A's, B's, and C's in 6 of the classes, but this one class, I got a 65. I got a D. I'm sorry. No. That means you did not meet minimum standards. Okay. I fire people for not meeting minimum standards. Okay. Now I can't fire you, nor would I want to. Love you as my kid, but that's not acceptable. I don't care that 6 of them were great. The 7th sucked. And that means you're failing.
Right. And as a business owner, if you get your metrics right, you actually would rather get a 70 in everything than necessarily, passing in everything but failing in one, because that one you're failing in theoretically could mess with the whole sequence,
Well, it really, as in real life, that's what happens, right? You and I know that, everyone listening or watching knows that, right? As an entrepreneur, in real life, I can't be like, listen, Your Honor, I filed 6 motions and I did them all on time and they were perfect. I know this 7th one was dog shit, Your Honor, but I really would like you to hear it, and I'd like you to consider it, and I would like you to actually grant it for me. I know it's garbage and my argument's weak, but please, the other 6 were amazing. That's not how that works.
Nope.
Although that is how some people practice law, by the way.
I agree. We should have on staff. But let's so about this whole idea of working remote. So, one of the pros for me, kind of play the pros and cons game together, right? One of the pros for me is is the collaboration of being in person. And, I've had this conversation numerous times. I'm certainly not saying that collaboration can exist virtually. I think we all proved in the last year it can. But for me, there's obvious benefits of being able to walk 20 feet down the hall, knock on someone's door, ask them a question. And I think human nature is I'm more likely to do that than I am to start the chat, right? The company chat with that same person. So I love collaboration. That's one of the reasons that we keep the team together. And I find that important for evolution of ideas and things like that. So what has that been like for you?
Well, where I see it is I actually like that too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm working from home at the moment, but I like going into the office personally. And my office is being remodeled. The one side we put a wall up, rented out one side because it's such a big building. Kept the other side, kept part of it where we have some of the equipment and built out some offices, right? And in all, especially over summer here, all the kids are home. I mean, I will go back into the office. The remodel should be done today, I believe it is, or tomorrow. But I'll go back into the office. Okay, but it'll probably just be me and like my production team. Like, it's not going to really be maybe a manager here and there every once in a while, right? But what happens with that, and what I found was that people would use that too much as a crutch. Instead of solving their own problem, what they would do is I'd come over to your office. And you're in the middle of doing something, Mark, and I'm like, hey, got a second? Got a minute meeting? And now I have derailed you from what you're doing. And then, by the way, oh my goodness, listen, dude, my birthday was this weekend. We did this epic thing. Let me tell you all about it. 30 minutes later, my got a minute meeting is done. And you can't remember where you were on what you're doing. And by the way, now your next appointment is here and so you didn't finish your job because you burned up that 30 minutes, right? And I, instead of spending 5 minutes to figure it out myself, I ate up 30 minutes from each of us. And we had a lot of that going on. And I think a lot of businesses do. Yeah. And so for us, yes, I do. Now, my managers, we do meet in person a couple times a month, right? Where we'll meet in person. Now, right this second, like I said, because of the remodel at the office, we've just been doing it via phone call or Zoom, but we will go back to that for the people who are running my director of operations, my director of marketing, the management team, right? And now maybe might we hire a manager? Actually, we have one manager who's actually moving up into northern Idaho, so she will be virtual every time. But in the conference room, I got a big old TV up there, and I can Apple TV, and I can shoot it up from my laptop, and whatever, and we can do Zoom right there, and she can be there with us, right? Is it as good? I don't think it is, but it will work. But I think the productivity on the management team, and even my own personal productivity is better because I can just get in here, do my stuff. See, I found I had never thought of it this way, but for many, many years, I got up at about 5:15 or so in the morning, and by 5:30, I was in my home office, and I sat there and I worked till about 7:30, and then I went and got ready, right, and then I went into the office. Those 2 hours were two of the most productive hours always for me. I got more stuff done in those 2 hours than most people probably got done in a day. And that was one of the things that helped me scale and grow my business was that solid 2 hour block. Well, now what's happened, just from an entrepreneur standpoint, is not only do I have that uninterrupted time over here that I can do my 2 hours with, right? But the other thing, but what's happened is because I actually am able to get so much done because I have all this uninterrupted time. I don't necessarily, there's a lot of days I don't necessarily need an entire workday even. I get done early, which is great for me, right? Because I believe that the job or the goal of business, and even in making money, is to get to a point where you don't have to do anything unless you want to do it. Like there is no, I want to not be able to do anything at all, like not show up, go to the beach, like whatever. I mean, I'm flying to, like, last minute, a bunch of my friends were like, they're like, hey, 2 weeks ago, they're like, before we did, it really was my birthday this last weekend. Before we did a big party over the weekend that they planned as well, we had planned just 2 weeks ago, we planned to all go to Scottsdale. In fact, a group of us had forgot to book our hotel, which we just booked the hotel last night. So, I mean, that's how like kind of last minute it was. Right. And so, and I want to be able to go do that. And I want to go, and I don't want to worry about anything while I'm gone. Right. I just want to go and enjoy my Memorial Day weekend and, go to some clubs and sit by a pool and have a great time. Right. And so that is, that's the goal, right? I don't want to mow my lawn. I have friends that love mowing their lawn. I hate it. If I haven't mowed my lawn in at least a decade. All right. So I'm not going to do that. The goal is to buy back your freedom and then only do the things you want to do. And so that's how I see it. And this is actually moving me closer and closer and closer to that goal.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you and I have talked before offline. I have a very similar goal, and in some capacities have achieved it at even a kind of a smaller business size, which really just means that what goes into my pocket is less. But it's interesting. It's one of those things that for me kind of goes both ways, because I'm able to kind of disappear, and I guess it would be easier if I didn't necessarily have an office to worry about. But I tell you what, I was really interested in your story about waking up in the morning and productivity. I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that is fueled by the presence of others. So I actually need to come into the office and need to be around people to actually be at my highest productivity. And so, that's one of my, fear is not the right word, but that's one of the reasons I would always be on the fence with, work from home or not, is because I know I'm not the only person like that,
I do know that.
And let me add this, even when we went remote, some people's productivity went up, other people's didn't, and so I think that's why a lot of people out there have struggled with this, is because you've got these crusaders saying productivity goes up, and you got other people saying I tried it and it didn't. And so I think it's one of those swings that either they're doing it wrong or it doesn't always work for everyone. I mean, I don't know. I think that's why we're talking about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll say I'm going to be like, I'll be like completely honest on this. The truth is it can work or it won't work. And it really is 100% dependent on you, the entrepreneur. Like you can make it work,
I like that.
Or you can decide it's not going to work. I used to think that I could not work. I used to say, I'm not a morning person. I want to get up around 8 or 9. I don't want an alarm clock to wake me up. I'll take my time. I work at night. I work best at night. Yeah, come to find out that was not accurate, but that's what I thought. That's what I told myself. And I told myself that for so long that's what it was. And then it was when I finally, said, look, I'm not getting anything done at night because I need to spend time with the family at night. And so I'm going to have to try this. Well, it sucked for a long time. Like it was a good couple of months that getting up that early was brutal. And, but after a while, once I kind of got a system routine, I got used to it. Guess what? I was a morning person. It's kind of like going to the gym. The first couple of weeks are horrible going to the gym. Like You're like, why would I do this to myself? And then you start to feel better and stronger and things like that. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is great. I really enjoy this. Yeah. Or whatever the example is. And so I think it's just you can do it either way. And there isn't a right or wrong answer overall. It's whatever you think is best for you and your company. But I could make either one of them work, I guess is the point. Right?
Well, on an individual, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think what I think about too is the team. I mean, the truth is that even in my company, smaller team, but I've had conversations one-on-one with people, and like certainly there are people, some of you are probably listening to the podcast right now that work at Spotlight Branding. There are some of them that absolutely would love the idea of going remote, but I know some others would probably, they'd like the perks of it, but they'd miss the camaraderie. They'd miss the culture, and stuff like that. And so, that's why I've always felt like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things where there really isn't. It's a right or wrong answer based off of you and your company as the entrepreneur, and it's not necessarily even a right or wrong answer for the team about the team. Like I think this is one thing that I struggled with for a really long time, And if your team is, or when they're listening to this, they might not like what I'm about to say, but it is, in my opinion, accurate, which is that at the end of the day, the business does need to take care of the team. It does need to be good to the team. You should treat your employees or team members well. But at the end of the day, the business is designed for you. It's designed for what's in your best interest, whether that's financially, whether that's relationship wise, whether that's whatever it happens to be. Okay. It's whatever is in the entrepreneur's best interest. And I spent a lot of years adjusting taking the short end of the stick, so to speak, right? You know what? I can absorb that. I've got the money to absorb this expense, this loss. Well, this person has kids, man, and I know they suck at this job, but let's throw some more training at them, right? Or whatever it was, because that's good for the team. They're well liked. And what I realized was, yes, I have the capacity to take on a lot more than some. And so I could absorb a lot more. But at the end of the day, my team members, I have one who is literally employee number 2. She has been with me for 9 years in September. That is a long time. She was literally 18 years old, or just turned 19 or something like that when she started with me. Okay. And she's a manager now, right? She's worked her way up. And so, yes, do I have loyalty to that employee? 100%. Is she by far the exception and not the rule? Yes, she is. And the problem is that I was doing all this bending over backwards. And again, I have a great culture. Like, we treat our employees really, really, really well. Okay. We have won awards for it from our employees 4 times. One of the best places to work in Idaho. So don't confuse. And I'm saying like, hey, we're jerks to people. We're not. We're super nice, great benefits. Like, we take care of them. But at the end of the day, I started this company to benefit myself and my family. Right. And so I can only take the short end of the stick so long. So if it's what's best for me, that's the way we're going to do it more times than not, because that's the purpose of the company. It's to build it's for me, because when the employee decides that another job that pays 67 cents more an hour is in their family's best interest, they will leave me with 48 hours notice and not think twice about it. So how is it that I can be expected to bend over?
I mean,
so
look at it. Even 2 weeks, it's like, okay, that's not long enough to really hire. So I agree. And, I also think it's worth adding that I try to tell my team that for the most part, honestly, what's in the owner's best interest ends up being in the best interest of the team. I mean, you keep that employee around who everybody likes, but they're underperforming, that actually does hurt everybody, because that's going to hurt retention or hurt, customer service or hurt something else. So, I mean, I generally think that people have kind of a skewed perspective of all this anyway, like owners and staff are pitted against each other. And I think both can win.
Well, and that's what we've tried to do with, again, if people would like to come into the office when it's done being remodeled, we have desks up, they can come in. So we did a hybrid. Now, not very many people chose to come in. Like when we were open previously before the remodel, like 1 or 2 would come in. People would come in every now and once in a blue moon when they needed. Maybe we'll see some more during summer when kids are out of school, possibly, right? So we have that option for them, but it's just, most people don't take us up on it. And that's where I do agree. What is in the owner's best interest, the vast majority of time, is also in the team member or employee's best interest, right? So like you said, low performing team member, but I can't get entrepreneurs who you would think would be like, like from an employee standpoint, from just understanding how stuff works, they're usually like a little bit more elevated, right? That's why they're running their business, willing to take more risks. I can sometimes have a hard time getting entrepreneurs to realize that they need to do marketing, and they need to nurture leads, and that they need to do more than just pitch every 5 seconds, and that they need to create content, and that we, like all this stuff. We live in a content-based world and society that you need to be adding value, and you can only take so much value out of your list before your list is worthless, right? I can't get them to understand concepts that for me seem very, very simple. Like, doesn't this make sense? This is human nature. Because they're like, well, man, if we're doing that nurture campaign, I mean, gosh, did nurture campaigns work? And I'm like, every study on planet Earth says that they work, that's looked at it. But yeah, let's question it, right? So if I can't get them to get it, how am I going to get a team member to realize that that letting that their favorite their office wife go, it was actually in the best interest of the company, right? I can't. It's a lot of times I can't. And
that's a great point.
And so I just, I'm just like, listen, I'm not going to fight those battles anymore.
No, that's a good point. And I think at a core here, and the kind of the dots that I want to connect are, in general, like for the business owners out there listening, at the end of the day, you do have, your business has to serve you. And so in this question of remote or not, honestly, the best thing for you to answer is maybe, what kind of business do you want?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, both models can work. But I tell you what, but let me ask you this though. So here's something fun though. What is something that you do feel like maybe you guys have lost over this past year that you maybe you haven't quite figured out how to get back by being remote or through remote?
Yeah, look, there's pros and cons to this, but I knew a lot about a lot of my employees, right? I knew a lot about, I was engaged in their lives, personally, professionally, right? I cared about them. And the truth is, there's a bunch of them I don't even know. I've never even met, never even talked to anymore, right? And I don't like that. That's not, I would like to be more engaged. Just my role, my position just doesn't, and with the size of our company, I don't interact with a lot of them, right? Unless they're sitting there in the office. And it's not a requirement of my job, and I've got enough things to do, or I don't want to do anything, right? Depending on what day we're talking about. So, and so there's one of those things where, I absolutely miss that. And I know that there is some disconnect there, I'm sure, with some of them as team members. I mean, I've had employees meet there and not get married there, but get married because of meeting at my company, right? That's a cool thing, right? So, you're
welcome.
Yes, I know. I will take a 1% tax on all of your guys's. Just kidding. So like, there's some cool stuff that you miss out on, like that relationship, as you mentioned. And there's some other cool things where, because I did know about things that were going on in a lot of people's personal lives, I was able to sometimes, discreetly do nice things for them to help out in one way or another that I can't do because I don't know anything about what's going on, right? In most cases, I don't know what's going on, right? And so there was that aspect of it. And for me, that's one of the things I'm a giver. I like to help. I like to, like an act of service in a sense, fix a problem that's maybe easy for me to fix. It's hard for them. Like, I don't have that. I don't get that benefit which I got a lot of benefit out of it too, right? It made me feel good to be able to do that and help them and there. So there are cons. And I think you said it best when you were just like, listen, it's a completely personal decision. At the end of the day, what serves you, the owner, best? What is going to get the most work done, that's going to be the most productive, most profitable, and make everyone the happiest. And whatever that answer is for you, that's the way you should do it. And maybe that's a hybrid model even, right? You can come in, or you don't have to, or you have to be in on these days. I know people have gone and done that. So
that's a great point. I mean, and oftentimes in life, when you're deciding between two decisions, sometimes both is an option,
Right. Yeah. Sometimes both is an option. Right. And so, I think it's just, how do you structure that? Some people say, well, I'm going to take a survey. I'm going to ask a survey, see what everyone wants. Really interesting. I found most people do not know what they want in general in life, right? Like, they think they want some things, and then, it's that be careful what you ask for, you just might get it type of a mentality. And so I would venture to say, like, be careful with that, right? You could take the survey that everyone might say they want work from home, and then get work from home and can't handle it. See, we had that. We had everyone wanting to work from home, and then we get a couple of people out there who all of a sudden are committing time card theft, right? They were then out of a job in the middle of a pandemic. Now, luckily, I guess there was, I hear there was a bunch of stimulus, and stuff like that. I didn't receive any checks myself, so I don't know. I thought it was like a unicorn or something, but I hear there was a bunch of stimulus that happened. So maybe they were okay. I don't know, but yeah. So some people thought they wanted, and then it cost them their job, right?
So that's a good point. So, I want to kind of wrap up here in a minute, but there's one other benefit, one other perk that we talked about earlier before the episode, and I want to make sure we brought it up here since we're kind of obviously talking about the upsides and the downsides. But one of the things you shared was how by going remote, your talent pool just opened up to really the entire world because all of a sudden your location doesn't matter.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so Boise, so I'm in Boise, Idaho. And I moved here from the Bay Area in 2007. So I've been here for a while, and it has grown. And actually, since the pandemic, it's grown a ton because there are so much more remote workers. So a ton of people from California, Oregon, and Washington are moving in, which is great. But most of them have jobs already. So our unemployment's low, our economy is really good. Even throughout the pandemic, our economy was relatively good the entire time, and so it becomes difficult to hire talent here because of that. And so this has allowed us to hire all over the country. Now for a variety of reasons, there's a few states we actually don't hire from because for the lawyers on there, it creates a nexus, so like we don't have employees in California, for example, because I don't want a nexus in California and paying California income taxes. Like there are some negatives when you start hiring all over the country. And you got to look at each individual state. And there are certain states we won't hire employees from because of their laws. And literally you can hire, as an example, one employee in California, and then you can take every single that will create a nexus, meaning you're going to owe income taxes there. You have to file a California state income tax return for your own personal for your business, and then your personal.
Talk to your tax accountant before you.
Yeah. So be careful on that. But every customer now is out. But if you're a lawyer, I guess it's not going to be as big a deal. You probably don't have clients all over the country. You probably have them in your state, right? But like we have gotten some amazing employees just in northern Idaho. It's 5 hours away where they're at, or 4 hours away where they're at. But so we're able to go outside of the area, and they love it. This job pays way better than the jobs there, and they're super qualified. It's just that their quality of life is they want to go live in the middle of nowhere somewhere. So that's what they want.
And conversely, if your office is in kind of a higher income area, you potentially can hire at lower wages. Mm-hmm. Right. And wherever you're hiring from, those lower wages might actually be great wages there. Right. So you don't necessarily
amazing wages, right? In some cases, which is what we found. And then also we saved money on the office building, right? So I own that building. We leased out part of it. That saves money on the mortgage. Right. So.
All right. So last thing I want to touch base on is just some of the maybe some of the tips and things that you've done that have really helped it work well. Mm-hmm. We started off, you talked about your comp model. We kind of glossed over metrics, but I think, and you can certainly add to it, but I think the short version there is, who cares if someone's working 40 hours a week? I care that they hit a goal or a deliverable. So maybe you can touch on that. But the other thing too, that you've shared with me is that you guys have done some neat things to create culture and to create community. And so just kind of anyone else who is doing this already or is about to do this, what have you learned in the last year that you can share with them on kind of maybe some ideas on how to do it well?
So I would say a couple of things. Let's start. We'll start with creating culture, right? Okay. So one of the things we did was we normally have a Christmas party. Obviously, didn't have a Christmas party in 2020. So we got together. We planned out some games. We got together like a care package that we sent out to every employee, wherever they lived. And we had a set time, and there were prizes that they could win by getting on and playing the games at Christmas with us and stuff. And there was food in the care packages and a little gift and things like that. And we sent all of that out, and we had everyone get on if they, at a set time, right? We do have set meeting times. And so we kept meeting times. We have all company meetings, and we keep a meeting rhythm going there, right? So that we are at least seeing most people, on a regular basis. We do have, instead of it being more where I'm checking in with the team, it ended up getting delegated down. So now you have the more of the managers and supervisors, or, in a sense, they're a little more responsible for the well-being of their team, right? And making sure everything's okay. And in fact, we still have come up with, there have still been times where there have been challenges in an employee's life, and we've stepped in as a company, right? It's just that I'm not getting it firsthand. I'm getting it, through my, from a manager to the director, of operations or whatever, right? So we're still able to do some of those things. That also does insulate me a little bit, because that, sometimes you get asked for stuff, you're like, what? No. So that was nice. But yeah, so it was like how we have a whole goodie box and thing that we send out when you're a new hire, welcoming you, right? That has all swag in it and things like that to help make you feel part of the community. Now, actually, interestingly enough, it did also, by them not having as much connection with me and as much time with me, it actually made, when I go say, this is what we're doing, believe it or not, they were like, everyone took it even more seriously. Not that they didn't take it seriously before, but when they knew me and had this personal level, some of them thought they could go get a pass, because they would ask for an exception, or they could get a pass because we had a personal relationship, or they've been there for, one, she was great, recently recently left, but she was there for like 8 years, and we did a lot of traveling together over those 8 years. So I knew all about her family. She knew all about mine, that kind of stuff, right? So sometimes they would ask for passes, right? So that was a little bit of a negative that no longer happens anymore, right? And but like, I think it's just fine. What has to happen is you've got to do nice things, whether we'll send a greeting card, we'll send a little gift card if they do something cool, thank you cards. Like, how do you build the connection? Which is really interesting. For us, maybe it seemed a little bit easier, a little bit more natural, because it's kind of what we do, right? Nurturing and stuff like that. So maybe it could be more of a challenge for some than it was for us, but like, our whole business is based off of nurturing your leads, nurturing your customers, building that relationship when you're at a distance, when you're remote, when you don't see them every single day, right? So how do we do that? And so it might have been a little easier for us. I don't know.
I think I'm thinking about too, how, whether it's you, the business owner, or like an office manager, someone kind of has to own this, I think, because like anything, it's not going to happen unless you put some intention to it, probably some structure behind it. But, you're right. You can create culture, you can create camaraderie, but I think it's going to have to be by design.
Of course. Well, I think it's by design either way. See, when people think it's not by design and you're doing it in the office, it is by design. You're either creating it and you're running it as the owner and the CEO, or your employees are creating it and running it because they took it over from you.
That's fair.
So it's happening either way.
I guess what I'm talking about is how maybe it flows a little more naturally in an office environment, right? So you put your core values up on the wall, and people see them every day, and it's part of things. But if you're going to go remote, you better have a weekly huddle or something where you do core value shout outs.
Well,
or something like that.
Well, there's a whole training. So we had to set up and we're actually redoing this right now. Like, I think it's almost done or just got done. I can't remember, but where we had to redo all of our training. So we had trainings and things like that, but to do it remote, we had to change it. And then what we found was that the first the set of trainings that we did, we did it. They were great, but the problem is that if you need to understand a concept, it might be buried in an hour-long video, and then finding that video, even with a description, you might never find that video again, right? So we had to redo a bunch of training. Well, in the training, the new hire orientation, all that kind of stuff is where we have to put in those core values. We have to talk about what we do, why we do it, and then we can put those in other places, plant the seed throughout the trainings. And the trainings, there's new trainings on a regular basis. I'll be doing a training for our sales team tomorrow, and getting on a Zoom call with all of them and doing that training. And so I'll be doing that tomorrow. But and then what happens is like, for example, I'll give this little tidbit for training in general. I know this is off topic, but since I went down that road, we have our training on some kind of learning platform. I don't even know which one it is, but we have it on some kind of e-learning platform, $100 a month or something. And it can allow us to do testing and things like that. So we can see that people are actually doing it. We see how much they watch the video. But what we did is we took each concept and its own video. So even if I do an hour-long training, we broke it up into little segments, and I might have I might have 10 segments in that hour-long training. And then we carve out each little segment and each little piece of culture. So I don't talk about all 10 core values. I talk about one core value. Next video, next core value, next video, right? So that way they could go in and get the concept. They could go in and get the one concept that they need. I could describe what's in that video. They could find it in 3 to 5 minutes, right? So how do we add that? What we do have to pour more into training, and then from the training, we have to add in some of the culture, right? That was one of the things that we had to do. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's there's a lot of ways to do it. And like I said, if someone owns it, someone's intentional about it, each manager is going to have to own their team and make sure that that manager's on board, creating the same culture, that they fully are bought in, so and are fully on board with the culture, so that they can then pass that down to their team, right? So.
Absolutely. I love it, man. All right. Well, I mean, heck, I've got so many more thoughts on this, but I think we got to put a pin in it at some point.
We got to wrap it up. I mean, pretty good for a last minute change to the topic, right? I think.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah. For those that don't know, when we got together today, Shaun and I, we were going to talk about the importance of relationships and relationship economy in terms of business, and it makes sense because both Spotlight Branding and the Newsletter Pro believe strongly, like Shaun said earlier, in marketing and content that nurtures relationships, generates more referrals, more repeat business. But I thought this, with what's going on right now, I think a lot of people are asking themselves this question. And on this podcast, we want to bring the listeners value, even if it has nothing to do with marketing. So I hope the listeners found value.
I hope so too. I mean, I think that that's the point though, right? Like actually the interesting thing is that this training or this webinar podcast might actually be a better point than we could have made going in and talking about the nurturing side of it. Okay, like if you really think about it, for your list, list exhaustion is a true and real thing, right? You can only hit them up and say bye, or let me talk to you about my stuff so much, right? You have to add value, and I've been saying this for a long time, but we are seeing it more and more right now in the marketplace. If you are not adding value above and beyond what it is that you are doing, what are your core services, I promise you someone else will and they will take your customers, okay? You have to be in there, top of mind. You have to be helping them, giving them something more so than just buy my stuff. I'm a good lawyer. I'm, whatever it is, right? I'm a good marketing agency. You should buy my stuff. And if you don't do that, you will continue to have, you'll see greater churn numbers as we go on. COVID even sped up the move to needing to do this, right? It sped it up because people are craving a connection, because more of them are work from home, like you said. So they are craving a connection. You better give it to them. You better add value into their lives before your competitor does. And so if you're not doing content, if you're not doing videos, if you're not doing podcasts, if you're not sending out e-newsletters that aren't just like, hey, let me talk to you about the case I just won for $7 million settlement. Like, no, I mean, you could do some of that. You need some of that, of course, right? But that can't be every single time, right? That's so.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with provide value above and beyond what it is you do.
Yeah. If you provide value and then just tell people about what it is that you do a little bit here and a little bit there, they'll come. You don't actually have to. They're pretty smart, I found. They'll figure it out. So,
well, Shaun, we end every episode of Center Stage, this podcast, with asking if you could give one piece of advice to lawyers, what would it be? But I think maybe that's it, right?
Yeah, I think that would be it. Yeah, I would just, how can you add value into their lives? And it's so much easier than you think. But a lot of times consistency, and you're too close. You're so you can't see the forest through the trees type of a deal. So
let me just say this too, and we'll kind of come in for a landing with this, but we're two content marketing guys. I mean, I think I'm going to be honest, and I love our audience. I love our clients, but y'all need to hear this. You have you got the attitude backwards sometimes on content, like with lead gen. So running ads on Google or anything else, or going to an event. Sure, you got to ask yourself, what's in it for you? What are you going to get out of it? When you're creating content, it has to be what is in it for them. What can I give? And when it's about, well, is this going to give me leads? Like, I understand the root of that question, but it, yeah.
I literally just wrote an article for our newsletter this morning, about the topic, and about how actually it is significantly more profitable, significantly. And I gave the numbers and everything, to take all your leads, right, and take your existing customers and how you add value into their lives, right, with content. So once you've got them in, you do your marketing to get them in, right? Now you have to nurture, you have to, it's like anything else. You got to grow that relationship. You plant the seed, it's got to grow, right? Just did an article all about that today, because I was helping a buddy like last weekend or 2 weekends ago with his business. And it was like, that's everything. Everything was pushed buy. And I'm like, dude, that's why no one's buying. No one is going to buy. Like it's, or they're not going to buy on the levels. And you're spending all this money to get these leads in, and then you're letting them like just crap out the bottom because you don't want to add value. Like, this doesn't make sense. Look at how much cheaper it would be. It's like dollar cost averaging. Okay, so these guys converted, these guys didn't. Let me go ahead and put a small amount of money towards nurturing these guys. And guess what? They're going to grow. Some of them are going to grow into customers. It's amazing. But that's going to be cheaper than me just going out, and easier than me just going out and getting new customers all the time. Plus, eventually you do run out of leads. So you max out those lead sources. You're like, I'm getting everything I can for what I'm willing to pay. Anyhow, I'm telling you, 100%, if you're not nurturing and you're not doing content, you are leaving, depending on how big your business is, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars on the table. You're absolutely insane.
Well, let's do this. That article sounds perfect. Where can people go if they want to go ahead and sign up for a copy of that?
So here's what we'll do. Originally, I was going to give you guys my new book. Okay, free and clear, and that will get you a copy of that article, right? Perfect. So because you'll get on the newsletter.
Tell us about the book real quick, then.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, let's see, it's Stop Losing Customers. Okay, is what the book is called. And so the focus is on how to kind of get everything you can out of all that you got, right? How do we maximize a customer? So a customer comes in, and I don't mean in a shady way, right? Like, how do we give them enough value and maximize that customer? They've come in, they decide to do business with you. How do we make sure they have a great enough experience that they keep doing it, that they refer friends and family? Because that's where you're going to get the maximum, maximum profits, the maximum growth, right? Is by doing that. And so if you grab this book, Stop Losing Customers, it will go over, all of that, right? How do we, and right now you are seeing, a lot of people are seeing higher churn because of what's happened with COVID and stuff, right? So it's a good book for that. They're seeing higher churn. So how do we stop losing those customers? How do we get referrals? That kind of thing, nurture them. And then, and when you get that will get you the newsletter. And then the book's free too. So you don't even have to pay. We're not even charge you shipping. Like, it's on us, complimentary. And so all you got to do is text the word stage to the number 208-269-9111. So 208-269-9111, text the word stage. And then it's going to ask you, what's going to happen is you'll get a couple texts back. It'll ask you for like your name, what's your address, where do you want us to send the book to? And then after you give us all that, next business day, it'll go out in the mail, and you'll receive it in a couple of days. And that'll also, like I said, get you that newsletter with that article I just wrote, which will completely complement this what we just talked about here at the end. And
give them that, for everyone who is fumbling with their phone, give them that one more time.
So you want to text the word stage to 208-269-9111. And then just, actually, when you notice it, when you get those text messages, even if you're unsure if you want the book, you should really do it to see the automation we're using, because that's not a human texting you back. So I'll let you in on that, but notice you will feel like it is. Okay. So look at that, look at what we're doing there from a marketing standpoint, because I'll tell you what, it works really, really well. And you should check it out for your own business too.
Cool. All right, Shaun, well, as always, it's fun seeing you, and I hope the audience got a lot out of it. So thanks so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.